3 days before the elections, and I just heard it's not meant to be funny, but it hit me funny. A political ad, and it was for a race in Georgia. I think it was Purdue and Nunn, so Patty Nunn or something like that, and the guy was Purdue. And they don't, of course, they don't tell you who's Republican and who's Democrat, but what it was advocating for Nunn. And I don't pay attention to Georgia politics, but you can really tell who the Democrat and who the Republican was, because, you know, listening to the ad, the talking head was saying, Purdue did this, Purdue did that, and one of the key things that tied it together, that what I found funny, was Nunn was blaming Purdue when he ran a company. He said he laid off a bunch of workers, and the other part of saving the company was outsourcing to a foreign company, and sending jobs overseas. That was her charge against Purdue. And at the end, you know, well, this is what Patty Nunn, or whatever her name is for. She's for, I don't even remember, but the one thing is, and she's for raising the minimum wage. I'll let that sink in for a second. So she's blaming Nunn for doing things that were in direct response to people who wanted to raise the minimum wage. It's like, okay, you're a business owner, and the way you can stay alive because the minimum wage went up is to do what? Lay people off and find cheaper labor. So it was, if you're politically astute, you'll get that. Unfortunately, that's not who the ads are for. The ads are for people who don't quite connect, not only 2 plus 2, but can't even connect 1 plus 1. So it was just, I was like, oh my gosh, what a crock of crap. So pay attention to these ads, and you'll know who the Republican and, well, the conservative anyway. You know, and on the surface, neither of them should be in elected office. But when you dig a little deeper, and like I said, why would this guy, she's blaming this guy for laying people off. Well, his company was probably not the only company that laid people off. I mean, I'm sure there were Democrats out there that were in charge of companies that had to lay people off. Imagine that. But you don't hear about that, do you? All right. Anyway, I just found it funny. See you later. Another funny political subject. I'm driving through Virginia now, and the race is with Senator Mark Warner in Virginia. And he was actually running when I used to live in Virginia a long time ago, back in 98, 99. But one of the things he's running on is that he wants to reduce, listen carefully, reduce taxes, or not reduce taxes, but give, like it's his to give, tax incentives to energy companies to build the XL pipeline because it's good for Virginians. All right, hang on to that. Well, in the state I live in now, Pennsylvania, there's a guy, his name's Wolf. He's running against the incumbent Republican governor, and his platform is that he wants to raise or create a tax for energy producers because he believes they're not paying their fair share. So you got a Democrat in a neighboring state saying he wants to give tax incentives to energy companies, and then you got another Democrat who's running on he wants to raise taxes on energy companies. So what is it? Is raising taxes good for the people, or is giving tax incentives to energy companies good for the people? They don't freaking know. You know, whereas again, I'm not a Republican. I'm a realist. But my observation is at least the Republicans or conservatives are consistent in that they are pro providing jobs. They're pro making it, lack of a better term, business friendly, right? And trust me, they are no angels either. There's a lot of backroom deals on both sides. But in the end, at least the message on the conservative side is that we want to make it friendly for businesses, because everybody wins. Everybody wins when there's jobs and there's revenue in your state. I mean, look at North Dakota. There's an oil boom there, and if the federal government could have shut it down, they probably would have. But when businesses are doing well, everybody does well. Liberals will complain or say, well, somebody's going to get screwed either way. It's like somebody's getting screwed right now under the Democrat power. So like I said, I'm not a conservative, I'm not a liberal, but I just see the hypocrisy on the liberal side. And trust me, there's plenty of hypocrisy on the Republican side too, but at least the message on the Republican side is consistent. I just thought that was freaking funny, All right, go out and vote. I was talking to Tack Bishop last night, and we're talking about elections and stuff, and I told him my opinion is, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Because if you voted for a guy and he doesn't do what you voted him to do, then you can complain about it and you can kick his butt out. And if the guy you vote for, or the girl you voted for, didn't win and they screw things up, you can complain there too. So I know it doesn't give much pleasure at the end of the day if things go awry. And anytime you get the government involved, the chances that things going awry are very high. But at least you can say you had a hand in the process and that you didn't vote for that. It's a lot of psychological, but it keeps you involved. And to me, that's what's important. Staying involved, making sure do what you can do, instead of letting other people do things to you. But that's another video for another day. So get out and vote. Don't listen to the news. If your side is winning, go out and vote. If your side is losing, go out and vote. Regardless, go out and vote. That's all I got to say about that. Later. More politics. 'Tis the season. But I was listening to an interview earlier with an economist, and it's kind of one of those things that just like getting poked in the eye. It was just so irritating. But they were talking about how a couple things, how the economy has grown 2%, about 2 to 3% every year for the last 5 years, but workers have only seen like a 2% increase in their actual pay. Why is that? And you know, if I could have screamed in the radio to tell them, give them what the answer was, I would have, but you know, it was wasted breath. So I'll tell you the reason why. And they had an economist on there. I mean, and I'm not an economist, and I'll tell you why the workers' take-home pay hasn't gone up to match for inflation. It actually has gone up to match for inflation. That's because their freaking health insurance went up 25, 30, 40, 100%. That's why they didn't see any increase. If anything, they should have seen a decrease in their freaking take-home pay. My company, our health insurance policy plan per person went up 25%. Everybody in the company. Now, I am blessed to work for a company that pays 100% for my health insurance. But, you know, there were no bonuses. There was no Christmas party. And we actually had to lay people off. And that, to you egghead economists that can't understand why workers' pay hasn't gone up, even though there's been a 2 to 3% increase in the growth of the GDP, because the freaking insurance went out of control. The insurance costs went out of control. So that's point number one. Point number two, every time I hear this, it just makes my head explode. You know, I've got transparent duct tape holding my head together right now. But they're talking about, oh, well, how do we get it to where, you know, we can make the minimum wage a living wage? I'll use the term that the talking heads are using. The notion that you should be able to live on minimum wage is idiotic. You're not supposed to live on minimum wage. I was a kid in 1984 working for minimum wage, which was $3.35 an hour, and I knew I wasn't supposed to be living on minimum wage. What scares me is not the politicians spewing this idiotic junk. It's the people who believe them. You know, so anybody watching this video that doesn't get that minimum wage is not meant to be lived on, I'm telling you, minimum wage is not meant to be lived on. Kids know it. So I don't know why, as adults, people don't understand you're not supposed to live on minimum wage. You know, it's a harsh reality, but if you're an adult and all you can get is a minimum wage job, you work that minimum wage job, you work 2-3 minimum wage jobs if you have to make ends meet. Your situation is a product of your decisions, of the choices you made. Now, granted, some people have hardships and catastrophes. I get that, but that's not everybody. This cool bridge coming up. It's pretty neat. There's a bridge similar to this in Houston, near Houston, anyway. Isn't that cool? All right, back to my rant. So anytime I hear a politician say, "Oh, well, we need to raise the minimum wage to where people can have a living wage," it's just idiotic. Idiotic. But back to, you know, adults who find themselves only being able to get a minimum wage job. I feel for you, trust me, I do. But why is it the consumer, the taxpayer, that has to pay for the mistakes that you made? Trust me, I've made my share of mistakes. I own my mistakes. But I didn't sit around being a victim of my own stupidity. I got myself into a better situation. And if you guys have been following my religious Salty on Religion series, you know, to me, for me, I wholeheartedly believe there's a component of grace in there, that God has a hand in where I am today. But you know, I had to take ownership of some of that too. I definitely don't admit that I did it all myself by any means, but you know, you gotta have, as they say, skin in the game. So, but I could go on and on and on. Don't get me started. Well, that's it for now until I can think of something else. So, again, go out and vote. Go get your vote on.